Hey, y'all. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Ren. How's it going? I'm Drew from MakerMade. So, Sarah, if you've got any questions or anything like that, this is just an open forum, and we're here to help you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just hoping to learn something new today.
Cool. Yeah, hey, Ren. Good to see you.
Glad to be here.
Hey, Jody.
Hello, MakerMade.
I'm MakerMade. I'm Drew from MakerMade. So
Hi,
this
Drew.
is an open forum where anybody can come in and ask questions and get help, and we'll see if we can get you going or point you in the right direction.
Awesome.
Yeah. So can I help you with anything?
I inherited a MakerMade M2 still in the box from my
right.
dad, who passed away in February. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
I am ready to make it good, put it to good use.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, have you ever made any like woodworking stuff or anything like that before?
No,
All right. That's
I
gonna
can
be
use a
fun.
chop saw. I've put in baseboards. I've
Oh, great. That's perfect. Yeah.
done some, but no, I'd love to build cabinets or picture frames or
Yeah. Well,
tables, chairs, whatever.
yeah. If you use some power tools, it's just one more tool in your tools that you can use. And I see you've got, looks like that you're creative anyway. Behind you, I can see there's tons of stuff back there. That's awesome.
I started out with Cricut, and I would love to do more Cricut cutting wood, but it was just so limited. I feel like this is gonna really make it worth it.
Yeah, it's on like the small, like you can only cut, like paper and vinyl and things like that, instead of like wood and plastics and other stuff. So
yeah, with this Maker one, the Cricut Maker is the brand.
Yeah. Can it cut wood?
Yeah, it can cut tiny base wood, but it's only 12 by 12 sheet or 12 by 24 max.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, this is basically then a giant version of that you can cut 4 by 8 feet of space. So you can do a full ply. Most people though usually just cut stuff in the middle, like maybe just a little 4 by 4 area, because that's where it's the most accurate, in the middle. So you can cut all the way to the edges, but it might be off by like several millimeters as you go all the way to the ends, just because it's moving from one side all the way to the other.
Right.
But as you know from putting on baseboards and stuff, sometimes you got to sand stuff down and kind of finish it. So it's like that same type of thing as you're putting it all together. So I would say the first place to go would be to build it, and that would be on our resources page. So let me get you our link to that, and it's got all the guides and everything that you would need.
Awesome. I told my husband, I said, we need like a minivan now or a truck so I can go get baseboards, like, or go get plywood sheets.
So one thing that we have is a smaller frame that you can build too.
Okay.
So you
I might
can
have to start with that.
Like it. So the small frame is just 4 by 4 feet. And then that's designed so you don't have to have anything longer than 6 feet. So you don't have to have like a truck or something like that to be able to get it. So there's the resources page. So on there, you're going to have
an Equinox.
Probably. If you can open the window. Can you open the back window? Maybe.
No.
Or the trunk. Could I hang out the trunk? I bet it would hang out the trunk. Fold the seats down.
Maybe.
I bet if you fold the seats down, it would be okay. And you can put like a little flag or something on there and then like strap it down.
I've got some car seat situations. I may have to borrow somebody something.
Yeah.
Just have them deliver it.
Yeah.
This is on a pickup.
What, Sarah?
I have a Chrysler 300 and I lay my seats down and I stick half sheets or quarter sheets in there from Lowe's.
Okay.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I fit I've stuck like 8-foot boards in my wife's Civic before. So
how do you do that?
So you fold the seats down, and then you know how there's a gap between the front seats?
Yeah.
You can fit them through there. So I got like 2 by 6s in there to hang out the end. So it's possible. It's just you got to tie them down and put a little flag on the end to make sure it's okay. And
a whole lot of time.
Yeah, exactly. So on that resources page, you're going to have the build guide, which is how you actually put together the M2 on the sled. and it's going to kind of walk you through those steps. And then you're going to have the 3 frame guides. So those are the 3 different types of frames. So there's the mini frame that I just mentioned, which is the smaller one. And then there's the standard frame, which is a 10-foot beam. And that's a 4x8 space. And then there's a 12-foot XL frame. And that's for going even over the edge of a 4x8 sheet if you want to a little bit, and it can help you get over the edge. But you need to have a 15-foot chain to be able to do that. And makers that want to utilize like all the way to the very edges, they have like that 12-foot beam.
Okay.
So they can get all the way and maybe go over the edges a little bit. Ren, yours is 12-foot, I think, right? Yeah. 15-foot chains. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Jerry how much room you got, because I love the size of my machine,
Yeah.
but it takes a lot of my garage. And
like this takes up a lot of space.
Oh my gosh. I might have to pick out the Tesla.
well, you don't need a Tesla. You need a pickup truck.
I know.
Get a pickup truck.
I'm gonna sell it. Get the truck.
We're like, we're gonna sell the Tesla and get a truck because I gotta build some stuff.
Yeah.
Or get the like Tesla truck, right? Is that out yet? I don't know.
I know.
One has to have his priorities, right?
The awful Cybertruck. Yeah.
Yeah, a weird looking Cybertruck. Yeah.
Pretty good.
I mean, I could make like a wrap for it.
Yeah, there you go. So building that is first, and getting that sled and stuff together, and then you'll need a router. So
Okay.
I don't know if you had a router with your kit.
With
You'll need a
my,
router too.
I don't think it came with one. I have a Milwaukee compact router, but I
That
didn't
should
see
work.
that on the list of like tested, approved.
Perfect. Yeah, that's
But-
great. Yeah, so you can stick that one on there, and that'll fit like inside the clamps, and then you'll be good to go with that. And then on the frame, like I mentioned, you'll build whichever one of those frames that you want to build. And then once you build your frame, then you'll mount your M2 that you built on your frame, and then you're going to go through the calibration steps. So we've got a calibration guide that's on that webpage too, on that resources. And Casey, who actually jumped on, was just about to name drop him. He made some awesome calibration videos that can walk you through the steps to calibrate your frame.
I think I've
So-
seen Casey pop up on the Facebook group.
Yeah. So
A little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just a
but-
tiny
He
bit.
also has a dust collector that's the bomb. It's to have for sure.
Yeah, that's really
So-
useful too. So it's
Especially
good
if you're-
clean up some of the mess.
Yeah, if you're doing MDF, it makes so much really fine powder dust that having a dust collector is just essential.
Okay.
So spend the money, it's worth it.
Hey, Rob.
Plus, his dust collector comes with a centering jig, which is really nice, very handy.
Okay.
I'm going to need to have to get that.
It's useful. Yeah, for sure.
I saw one of his videos on it, and then I saw him talking about it on one of the Zooms. So I was like, yes, I need that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
absolutely.
mean,
So-
if anybody wants to order one, private message me in on the Facebook page, and that's generally how it's done. I don't do a lot of advertising for them and stuff, but just private message me, and I'll get you on the manufacturing list.
Yeah, and we have a marketplace. It's in the process of getting launched too. That has that on there as well that you can go and order it from once that launches. But yeah, messaging's probably the best thing to do for now.
Cool.
So yeah, there's quite a few steps that are involved to it. But once you get it all set up, and you can start making some really cool stuff. Yeah.
I'm pumped.
Hey,
Rob, what are you known for?
What am I known for?
Yeah, I've got like little bits of people. Ren's got the long setup. Casey's
I'm not known for anything. I just got my setup up and running, and I'm starting to like carve small things and work my way up into longer run times, and work out the kinks that come with putting it all together. And I think everyone's been pretty helpful so far.
We try to
Smart
be.
to start small. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I don't want to get a whole sheet and just.
Yeah, and trying to deal with the full sheets of plywood can be pretty difficult. So yeah, just getting those small ones, like Sarah was just talking about, if those little like 4x4 sheets, and you can get them to cut them too. If you go to like Lowe's or Home Depot, have them cut them down for you, and then
As long as the cutters work in that day.
True. Yeah.
Or someone
Always a
looking
flag.
that day.
No,
What,
it's really
Rob?
buying a full sheet and having them cut it, because when they sell you a quarter sheet. It's about 3/4 the cost of a full sheet.
Crap.
So
Okay.
buy a full sheet, have them cut it down, put it in your Equinox, or trade your Equinox in for a pickup truck.
Or get a trailer.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe I'll just get a trailer.
You know, building your stand is going to be just as much as fun as making stuff. I spent several months and I did a bunch of research and built mine out of metal. And
Ooh.
it's the bomb, but it was just a lot of fun to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say your frame build, ensuring that it's square, the top beam is level with the top of the spoil board, your cut area. You'll see in the calibration videos how critical all of that is. The M2 is just like anything else, garbage in, garbage out. If you build a crappy frame or a bad frame that isn't squared, it's not level, well, then that's what you're going to get out of your cuts too. So
For sure.
it's really important to ensure that you have a good frame. Take your time, make sure you do it right the first time, and you'll definitely see the benefits out of it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Welcome to the community. You're building stuff. So yeah, Sarah, what kind of projects and stuff have you done? You mentioned do you have a small frame, or do you just cut on 4x4 wood?
No, I've got the 10-foot, and I built it with the plywood, or the backboard is like in 4 pieces.
Okay, yeah.
So, and that is a little tricky because like where your middle, like where your pinpoint for your dead center is open. So you have to really know where everything is. And like Casey said, you really have to be level in there. So that was a little tricky, but I started out with a Cricut, or not a Cricut, but a Silhouette. And then I went to the Cricut Joy, and then I went to a laser. And so I really just wanted something bigger, like she said. And so, but
What
it
kind
took
of
me,
laser?
I have a K40.
What is that?
Toys.
So many new things.
But it only cuts like a 12x9 inch. And so I was trying to decide if I wanted to get a bigger laser or if I wanted to get something like the CNC. So I ended up getting the CNC, but that was a trick, trying to get it all together, because like my husband does not do power tools. We just say that the reason why he dated me in the first place was because I had more power tools than him. So, and I've been redoing furniture for years, dipping antiques and putting the finishes back on. So this is just another arsenal in my tools. But I've been making SVGs and different things. So it's easier to take the stuff from the laser and make it a G-code than it was to understand the G-code from the SVGs.
Okay.
And that was a little tricky too, because like when all the pieces fit together, like I did a truck and I stretched it. Yeah, I stretched it, and then I didn't really pay attention to where it was going to cut. So instead of making this cut to where it cuts inside the circle and this cut where it's cuts outside, I just did it all one. And so I had a lot of blowouts, and that was devastating, but it was a very big, okay, I learned from that now.
Yeah. A lot of learning from trying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the M2 has, I think it's a 2.5 watt laser, right? The JTech is a 2.5 watt laser that actually just slides in and out of the same bracket that holds your router in. So it's kind of a quick change out type thing, you know? And I really like that because I can just undo 2 bolts, slide the laser in, And with my setups, I have all the wires and everything running over to a swivel top beam. I think, you know, a lot of people have seen that. But then whenever I'm not using the laser, I just wrap it up and I put a piece of Velcro around it, keeps that out of the way. So I'm just using the router cord. But either way, I just, you know, basically unplug the router. I pull off two Velcro pieces that goes down. I slide in the laser, plug it in, and I've turned the M2 into a laser that's using the exact same platform, everything. The only thing about the laser, the 2.5, is you're not going to cut with it. It's a low power laser, but it does some really nice engraving. It does really nice engraving.
Awesome. Yeah, that's on my list.
So Sarah, have you used like a laser and a wood project at the same time with your K40?
Mm.
Have you done that before?
So I made a smaller version of it and then took it over. So yeah, I've done that, but I haven't cut something and then stuck it on the laser, but I do sublimation. So I cut out some of the dry erase board because you can sublimate on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I could sublimate on it, and that didn't go as well as I wanted to, but the concept is there.
You can sublimate on dry erase board.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Can you explain that process a little bit, like how you do it?
Like how I print on it?
Yeah.
Okay. So like you can cut out the dry erase board, and then I go to my printer, and since I already have the SVG of this, then I go to my printer and I put the design on it, and then I just print it out with my printer. I turn on my heat press and 400 degrees for 30 to 60 seconds, and it goes on.
Awesome.
What kind of heat press do you have?
I just have a basic 15 by 15. But
You want a bigger one? I have two of them.
I would love a bigger one, but my husband's like, you have too much crap. You have to figure out what you're going to do with it. I have like, I don't know. My kids graduated high school and moved down, and so I took over their bedrooms. I have one more that's still left in the house, and I already have a design.
You got the plans for his room already.
Yeah, what are you gonna move out? We're gonna move out already.
You have a bug too.
No.
We're redoing Baja 71.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I have to get rid of all this stuff.
No. Why?
Yeah, it's time.
Do you not have the room anymore?
I don't have the room anymore. I tore my rotator cuff. I have a bad Achilles tendon. It's just, it doesn't make sense financially. And I held on to it in the hopes that it would, you know, I'd get better fast enough, but it's not happening. And yeah, I have all this wonderful equipment and I got to make space for that. And it's time.
Yeah.
Aw.
Well, you could post in the owners group and maybe find somebody close to you.
Oh,
to get rid of it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Located?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. All right. I'm Ohio. Well, Kentucky.
I'm in
Okay.
Kentucky.
Right on.
Aaron Isle road trip.
I'm going to Cincinnati in 4 days, so
We have to meet up.
sounds good.
Jody, you should hook up with Oz, who's also in Kentucky.
Where's Oz? Who's Oz?
You can find her on the Facebook page. Or him. I think it's her.
I'm in
is it her?
Arkansas, so not too far from Kentucky.
Where?
Arkansas.
All right. Road
Where
trip.
headquarters is, isn't it?
Yeah, we are. We're in Springdale, Arkansas.
Awesome.
Yeah, so like the northwest corner of the state.
Cool.
Yeah, we're kind of spread out around the country, but that's the biggest group of us is right here.
At one
So,
time, I think MakerMade was looking at doing some learning sessions, like 1 or 2 day classes, and they would get everybody in a I don't know, they would kind of do M2 symposiums, right?
Mhm.
And invite the people on the Facebook page that have little tips and tricks on how to do things. And they would be demonstrating them in like, you know, a large room, multiple CNCs going, everybody demonstrating how they do this. And I think that would have really went over really well. But I mean, they have so many customers, you know, nationwide. It's hard to choose one spot. You probably have to have one East Coast, one West Coast, or something like that.
Yeah, and we've talked about doing digital workshops and stuff before too. And we'd love to have like community involvement, community led on that, for sure, to get just everybody share the ways that they've been doing stuff and the ways that they make frames and different materials that they cut, how their process is. Because there's so many different ways that you can make something. There's so many different ways to make G-code. There's so many different materials you can use. I mean, it's a fire hose of info when you first get started to kind of learn it all. So yeah, we've talked about doing that, and that would be something awesome that we should try to do this summer, because we did our sign makers workshop, which was awesome, where we had Aaron and Lauren and discuss their different businesses, their sign making businesses, and how they have grown those businesses, and you know, some tips and tricks on how they cut out signs and process them and sell them and all of that. So that's on our YouTube if y'all want to check it out. And we'd love to do some more events and stuff like that where we can really just showcase all the awesome stuff that y'all are doing.
I would really love that. I mean, I've been doing a lot of pocket and contour cutting. I've got stack loads of projects done, but I really want to, I've got a tree of life that I want to do. And I was thinking about using a V-carve, a V-bit, and doing some you know, texturing with it. I don't have an idea where you can start with that.
Mm.
Yeah, so I'm gonna jot that down. So like V-bit, V-carve that would be a really good session and stuff to have.
So is that like where you put layer upon layer upon layer that just goes down so that you get that contour? Or
So,
is it Gcode itself?
It's a type of bit that literally will make a V, so it can engrave into what you're doing and the different types of material that you're making. So it allows for, like, you know, little intricate scroll work and things like that maybe you've seen on CNC. You can do really intricate and cool like cutouts with different sizes and different types of V-bits.
Right, but he was talking about putting different textures and stuff in there. So is that made with layers then, or is that the V cut that actually makes those textures?
So both. You can do both. You could do both. If you could stack them and you could cut into it if you wanted to. But it kind of depends on like what kind of bit you're going to use, because you can use any type of router bit on the M2 to get all kinds of different designs and cutouts and things like that. As long as it will fit flush on your material and it will cut in there, then you can use those different types of bits. And you know, those V-carve bits you can do lots of like intricate scroll work, because it digs into the wood literally in like a V shape, and then it gives you that design and pulls out all the material, so then you can have like a more intricate cut, or you know, like designs around the edge of a cabinet or something like that.
So my question probably is that, if, like, for instance, in this tree of life, if I'm cutting a leaf and it cuts deeper will it cut deeper in the center and less deep, more shallow at the point of the leaf, so that it, you know, with that V-bit?
Hey, Ren, I think what you probably want to do, and maybe if I'm explaining this wrong, like it's going to make like 2 or 3 different passes with that V-bit, like almost like a pen's width wide, and it'll keep going deeper and deeper into the wood as it progresses through those layers. So it's like you're probably going to have a lot of G-code running. Like it's going to be, you know, maybe 15 or 16 layers deep doing that.
Yeah. So what you folks are talking about are actually 2 different processes. There's what they call 2D carving, right? And then there's what they call 3D carving. 3D carving are the nice, pretty, you know, the Last Supper and all that stuff that you see on Etsy, people selling all these Etsy SVG files with the Last Supper. And you got to remember that the M2 slides, it rests on the same material that you're cutting. So unless you're doing a 3D carve that's no bigger than probably a 3-inch by a 3-inch area. If you're doing a very small 3D carve, you can do that. But if you want to do a larger 3D carve, it won't work because the sled rides on the material. And as the material gets to be different depths, the sled will start to tilt and it messes up the bit. So first of all, the easel software and stuff like that a lot of people use, I still use it. I mean, that's my primary tool today. My primary tool is easel. I even use the free version. I don't use the paid version. I just go around all of that. But to do that, that is what is considered 2D carving. You can cut the shape out, or you can engrave, right, letters, etc., at different depths, at different widths. That's 2D carving. And then there's going to be, of course, the 3D, to where you'll use round nose bits, V bits, flat end bits, mill bits, and you may change a bit. You may go through 5 different bits in one run to do a real intricate 3D carve. So the only way to do the intricate 3D carving is the type of software you use. And if you look out there, there's a ton of different software. They're very expensive. The primary one is what is it's can't even remember it. I have it on.
Carbide Create can do some V groove cutting.
I was just gonna say I downloaded it last week and started using it, and it's really I love it so far. Ren, thanks for the recommendation.
Awesome. Yeah, so here's an
3D
example.
3D carving is done, I guess. You can do it with Carbide Create, but there are other softwares, VCarve Pro, VCarve Pro software, etc. It's like $650. But the difference is the software has its own modeling feature, and it has a ton of different profiles and things that you can do to it. So I bought that one. That was $650, but it depends on what you want, right? So
yeah.
2D carve and 3D
Aspire,
keep that in mind.
Aspire. iPhone, is that Mike?
That's me.
Hey man, yeah. Aspire, yeah. So that one works too. So here's an example. This is an upcut bit, and you can see like the end of it. See how it's flat? And it's made to pull the material out. So I don't know how much you can kind of see that. And then this is a V groove bit, and you can see that it is a point. So it's made to literally like carve in and do those intricate designs in different ways than this bit can create. So when Casey's talking about switching out those different bits, you know, each one of these different bits have different types of styles, and they cut differently, and you know, it's how you can make your really intricate projects.
I need
all done in the Gcode.
Yeah, and remember the software that you use. The software, based on how complex, how detailed the software is. Some software only allows you to do 2-bit changeovers. Some allow you to do 3. It just depends, again, on your software. So research your software really, really well to ensure that you get what you're looking for. So like the VCarve Pro that I have, I can do unlimited bit changes. So depending on what my design is, I can go through 6 different bits in 18 hours of carving. And it'll automatically home itself, go right back, and then I change out the bit, then it rehomes the bit, and then it goes. But that's on a lot more complex machines and complex cuts. The M2 is made for 2D carving. That's where its power lies.
Yeah, because it just doesn't have that same type of depth that a lot of those other ones can do. And
well, it rides, the design is the sled rides on the wood it's cutting.
Yeah, like you would have to make a skirt like around it, because it can't tilt off the edges. Because I've seen some people cut, you know, like scrap wood, almost like carving out of trees, but they have to build up 2x4s around whatever they're cutting to make sure that that sled doesn't get knocked off on the edge as it's moving around. So yeah, it's more designed with I think it's about 4 inches of depth that you can get on it that you can cut down into. And as far as different G codes go, there are lots of different options for that. But I know what a lot of people do is you'll just run another Gcode that has that different bit. So if you don't have a Gcode creator that can account for all these different types of bits and bit changes and stuff like that, at the end of your cut, it's going to go back to home. And then as Casey said, you just change the bit out and then you would just start another Gcode and then it would follow and go to the places that it needed to. And then it would carve that on your project. So you might end up having to have, 2 or 3 or maybe 4 Gcodes for each, one for each one of the different bits that you're using as you're kind of going through that process.
When you change a bit, how do you get it at the exact same depth as the previous bit?
Casey, you want to talk about that? You want to talk how you do it?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways. Of course, guys, I designed something for myself. I have a little pocket thing. I slide the bit in, then I put it into the end, and it ensures the bit sticks out the exact same length, whether it's a V bit or whatever. So I have my own little gizmo that I cut and designed and printed for that. But another way to do it is they actually sell these little collars on Amazon for 1/8 and 1/4 inch bits, all the way up to a 1/2 inch. And these collars slide over the bit, and you can actually measure the depth of those bits. The collars on those, you can slide those down. So they're always the same depth. You're constantly cutting with the same depth. So what that means is if you put one of those on all of your bits, they're really cheap, just a couple of pennies each. But if you put those on all of your bits and you make sure you measure from the tip of the bit to the top of that little collar, every time you put in a bit, it's going to be the exact same depth in the router on the board. So there's a couple of different ways to do it.
Yeah, and you can use trying to get that in there in the exact same spot is the best way to do it. So you can always home it out. And if you're doing it in between Gcodes, like if you're using different Gcodes, then you can make sure that when you put your new bit in there, you can home it again inside of Makerverse and then run your next Gcode. So if it's a little bit different, then you would have it homed already, and then it would go on. You would just home your Z again and make sure that it's in the right place.
Yeah, but you have to make sure
that say home your Z.
Exactly. Has to be in the exact same spot, because if it's not, it'll be off, and that can be really infuriating.
Yeah, and that's what those collars do. And that, I said, that little depth jig that I do, whenever I drop the bit in my depth jig, it always sets it. It's sitting inside of this little box. So whenever I slide the box onto the end of the router, wherever the bit is in the router is where it's at. The part that's sticking out of the router is what matters. It's the exact distance sticking out of the router as the last bit I took off. So that's how I do that. And those collars, MakerMade's, you have any 1/8 inch bits? Do you have a little package of 1/8 inch bits with you?
Yeah, let me grab one. Yeah, so you can see these are different sizes. So that's what Casey's talking about, because they're different sizes, and it matters on what's sticking out on the end.
Yep.
So here,
if you grab one of your little 1/8 inch bit kits, they all come with those little plastic collars on them. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Let's see. Oh yeah, here, I got one right here. Yeah.
No, not that collar. Pull out a bit.
Oh, I know what you mean. These little plastic ones.
Yes. Yeah, they're little top collars. They're already on the bits.
Did not notice that.
There.
Yeah. So you can see that's on there. Hope you get it in the same spot.
And those will slide up and down. It takes a little bit of work. You got to
kind of push them and pull them. But
yeah, but what you want to do is just measure from the end of the bit, the cutting tip, right, up to the top of that collar, and make sure if you buy some for your 1/8 or your 1/2 inch bits, put them on the exact same distance. They're all the same. And then anytime you do a bit change out, you just basically open up the collet, slide the bit out, put the new bit in, and you just slide it up until it's just touching that collet, and you tighten it down, and it's sticking out exactly the same distance as the last bit.
The other one was, yeah.
Then you're pulling your router out of the sled, and you've got to reinstall that exactly the same depth as well, right?
Well, so that's just it. Is if it comes back and it's on home, right? You lower the bit down to where it's on home, then you can go ahead and loosen up the screws on the router. I slide the router out. I change out the bit and then I slide the router back in until the bit touches the surface. Then I tighten it back down. You see what I'm saying?
That's a good
That
tip.
way the bit is always touching the wood, but I know the distance from the end of the router to the end of the bit is always the same as well. So by moving it down and you know, going to the Z home, by going to that position before you change out your router, your bit should just be touching the wood. So when you do that, you can just undo the 2 bolts, slide it out, put the new bit in, slide it in, and just let the bit touch the wood and slide and tighten down the 2 bolts.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah, it's there's lots of little tiny things like that you'll learn from from cutting an experience.
Hey, I have a Z-axis question. I paused a cut the other day and I bumped the Z-axis plug and it came out, and I plugged it back in and it went down 10 millimeters and thought that was home, and it's stuck there and I don't want to ruin the rest of the cut. How do I rehome it and keep cutting the same file from that position?
Did you pause the file, or
It
is the file?
I think it has stopped. Let me see
Okay.
here. It's on my other computer.
If it stopped, that's good. Yeah. So if it stops, then you'll home it just in the way that Casey just mentioned. Like, make sure that bit is exactly on there, and then over there on the right, you can set your new home for your Z-axis.
Okay.
Or if you know you made the statement that it moved down 10 millimeters, if you know it moved down exactly 10 millimeters, you're sure of that, then just move your Z 10 millimeters opposite direction and click set Z work home.
Yeah, you could do that too. You could use the work offsets. Yeah, because the work offsets are for like different types of material without ever like completely changing the way that the calculations of the M2 are set. So like when you're cutting on different parts of your frame and moving around, you want to use the work offsets. You don't want to change your actual offsets in home that you and do reset chains or anything like that. You'll change your work offset, and then it'll go, okay, you want me to cut up here in the top left corner and start. So it'll move up to that top left corner and then start cutting there. And then once that's done, well, then now you can move, to the top right corner, and then it can cut out in that area. And you can cut like the same thing 4 times if you wanted to. And that's how those work offsets work. And they would work for that Z too.
Well, I'm going to give it a try right now then.
Sweet. Yeah. Levi, do you have any questions?
And he's gone.
Do you have any questions or need any help? You can totally hang out too. That's fine.
Did you say Levi?
Or you can type if you want.
I'm still here. It's just going to get very noisy.
Fair enough.
Yeah, great. So Jody, what type of stuff are you thinking about making on the M2?
I mean, I've
Whatever.
seen
Right?
whatever file I find to get started with. I think it's
Yeah.
just gonna have to be the first deal.
Awesome.
But I have a graphic design background in Illustrator, so I'm looking forward to all
Nice.
kinds of.
Yeah, you'll be able to do all kinds of really cool stuff then. Yeah, SVG, as Sarah was talking about, the SVG is your friend. So yeah, you can just make
I
an
love
SVG,
that.
cut whatever you want. Yeah.
About having the knowledge of making your SVGs is that any line drawing goes. You can make any lines into SVG. If you draw it out, you can scan it in and make it an SVG.
Mhm.
It
Love SVG.
the sky's the limit when it comes to that.
Yeah, and we have a good video on that too, on how to convert SVGs. If you have a graphic design background, though, you probably already know how to do that. But Lauren has a whole a video that he did on how he did it in Inkscape and how he converts and SVG. And I know that he helped Brent out too, and to get going. And that's on our YouTube as well. I can post that right here.
Okay.
So you got it in the chat.
I know eventually I will want to make one of the Grinch cutouts, taking the lights off of the roof. So I just have to string one strand of lights and it looks like the Grinch took all the rest.
That's awesome. Yeah, Casey's made a lot of like big lawn decorations and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Also want to learn how to do the signs with the LED lights in them.
Oh yeah, I like the LED.
I've got a bar. I converted one of my kids' bedrooms into a bar, and we've got some real, honest to God, antique LED or neon signs, but I want to do some LEDs in there.
I have a 2 and a 4-year-old, so I'm sure he and she will give me ideas of what to make too.
Just think, you know,
Yeah.
in about 18 years, you'll have 2 more bedrooms to turn
I
into.
Project bedrooms.
Yeah, we actually have a user here in Houston that uses the M2 to cut out 6-foot letters that are 3-dimensional, and then they put light bulbs in them, and they host those big graduation parties and everything else, and they do big events downtown in the city center and everything else with politicians and all. I mean, it is crazy what they do with these things. I mean, these letters are huge. They're gigantic, and they're really, really, really neat.
Love it.
Yeah, there's some really awesome giant signs you can do. Yeah. Well, that's
I've been working on planters. I want one of those big dinosaurs for my yard, but I really want.
that's got plants in it, like growing out of its back.
Well, no, just like one of those puzzles. And everybody thinks I'm crazy, but I just really want one. And my mother-in-law actually bought one out of metal, but I was like, ooh, I can do that out of wood. But I wanted a truck, but I want like a 4-foot truck. So that's what I've been working on. And that's what I had the blowout on. I got it to a little over 2 feet. And so then I had to go in and change the design because it's just not cutting out the right way. But I want to do it 4 foot by 2 foot. So I can stick like a little Christmas tree in it at Christmas and pumpkins and different things. So that is what I've been working on the SVG for that.
I love it.
I love it. Yeah, that's awesome.
So you posted something about that in the Facebook page, did you? I think I saw it in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looked pretty cool. What you have looked great.
Well, and well, as you can see with it, like this was one of the blowouts. It was supposed to come up and go over the back of the truck, and it broke because it got too thin. And then I took these off because it'd be too tall on the new one. And then I forgot.
I just spotlighted you so we can see it.
Oh, so
Yeah, that's awesome.
where it broke off here, it was supposed to go up and around, and you can see where it was attached, but it got too thin and it blew out. And then above the doors, it blew out there too. And then I forgot to do the front piece and the other front piece, so I just cut pieces of wood to stick on there. But it's coming
together. Yeah.
And then some of the pieces just coming together. Some are not fitting just right. So I had to go back in and measure with the calipers to get those just right.
Because you said you stretched it out, right? Like you changed the scale of it.
Right. Well, and that really shouldn't have mattered. With the way that
dimensions were locked.
Right. Well, and it really shouldn't have mattered. But what I really want to do is get it down to where it's like straight cut. So it only takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours to do a 4-foot one.
Yeah.
So this one took me 3 hours and used the wrong bits, and it was a mess, but it worked.
Yeah. And you learn a bunch, which is important. Somebody,
Yeah.
as a lifelong learner myself, it's learning is half the battle.
Lifelong learner.
Yeah, so the blowouts, and I've had that happen before too. And that's one of the things that Lauren talks about in that video that I posted, is like how he figures out like what's going to be too small. And it might look like it's going to cut, and this is similar in 3D printing too. Like you pull a file into your program that creates your Gcode, and it looks like it's going to print, or it looks like it's going to cut, but it's actually like beyond the physical capabilities of the machine to do it. And when it's spinning at that high RPM and cutting it, when when it gets so small and then it goes to cut on the other end, then it can just wobble and break because it doesn't have that support on there. And those really tiny intricate things are really difficult to do. And that's why things like that V groove bit help with that, because it doesn't rip up. It's pulling up and out. It's not doing the same rotation. So it can help with some of those. So you can do like a V groove carve with two lines really close together easier than you can on like a straight cut or an up cut or something like that.
Right. And I watched his video, and I was like, all right, I have enough room in between these. And not knowing the machine and only being like the third cut, it didn't dawn on me that it was going to do that. So now, instead of locking my files when I come out of Inkscape, I leave them all open, so then I can change how it's going to cut each piece now. And he talked about that too.
Mm-hmm.
And then the depth is another thing. So you can, if you didn't want to cut out the windows, you can just cut the lines for the windows, which makes it a lot easier too. So and he shows,
and that saves time too in the cut, because you're not having to cut all the way through it.
Right. And he talks about that too. But when you don't know the machine and you don't know your bits, that's where you get the learning. And I guess doing it is what teaches you, because you can hear it 100 times. Like you can 100 times not to do something, they're going to do it, and then they're going to go, I should have listened to you.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, I think a workshop on bits would be really, really good. Where we just talk about bits and have people talk about bits. I think that would be awesome.
And where you get the bits.
And where you get them. Yeah. And that's something too that in that sign makers workshop that I mentioned, like that's one thing that is talked about in there too. Because I know that like Lauren gets a lot of his on Amazon. And there's like two different schools of thought in like getting cheap bits and just having them tear out, or getting like really expensive ones. And then there's, like the in between. So I don't want to self promote too much, but we do sell bits that are pretty good. But they're not the cheapest.
I've bought every one of them that you guys have offered. I've bought them all.
Yeah. So, and they're carbide, they're good bits. They're a little bit more expensive than a lot of the other ones that are out there. Because Casey, you get a lot of, you have cheap ones and expensive ones, right? That you kind of switch back and forth on. You want to talk about that a little bit? So it's not just shameless self-promotion the whole time.
Yeah, so I have some white side bits, some Freud bits, and then I also have, several of the MakerMade bits. And I think it really depends on the material that you're cutting. So lesson number 1, MDF. I know a lot of people go right to MDF for cutting and making whatever it is you want. MDF is literally the worst wood that you can use. I know it's cheap, but it is primarily epoxy. So if you look at MDF is like, it's not even wood chips. It's like wood dust compressed in a manufacturing environment. It goes into a mold and they pour epoxy into it. They mix it up and then they compress these things. So when you're cutting that stuff, you're not breathing wood dust, you're breathing epoxy. So wear masks, have a good dust collection. That stuff is highly carcinogenic. And because it's made primarily of epoxy, it chews up bits like there's no tomorrow. So if I'm doing anything in MDF, which is, by the way, very rarely, if I do anything in MDF, I use $5 China bit, because it's not going to last. It's going to wipe it out. If you're using regular plywood, you know, a good 3/4, 7-ply, whatever, it doesn't matter the species, because if you say I'm using 3/4 maple plywood, the maple is only the top cover and it's less than 1 millimeter thick. So you're not truly cutting maple. All the interior components of that plywood are a cheap white wood of some way, shape, or form. So it's a multi-species plywood is really what it is, with just the look of maple on the top and bottom. With those, I generally stick with the MakerMade bits if I'm just doing 2D carving. Whenever I start switching over to 3D carving and stuff like that, MakerMade doesn't quite have all the bits that are required for 3D carving because it's not designed to, right? So that's where I start rolling into the white side bits, the round bullnose bits, the different sizes, the different lengths based on what it is. But that's just a quick overview, right? Any plywood I would expect to use a medium to a higher grade bit. If you're cutting MDF, chipboard, like you'll see it they call it floorboard, right? The stuff that if you look on Drew's wall back there, that is chipboard. That's wallboard or floorboard that is made in the manufacturing for housing. That stuff's the same thing. It's slices of wood with tons of epoxy to glue it all together. It will kill your bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does. Your bits don't like epoxy. Epoxy is more dense than plexiglass, believe it or not. So it just depends on the type of wood that you're cutting. And I'll go a little step farther for this, because I know this is being recorded and a lot of people ask this, and I get a ton of private messages on this. When you cut with the M2, sometimes you come up with a 16 or an 18-hour cut time, right? Here's the trick. You can't really dial the M2 up, in my opinion, past 30. Past 30 inches per minute, because the sled requires gravity on that third axis, you got 2 axes going up in a chain, but then the third axis is pure gravity, right? Because it has that, once you start going faster, the sled will start moving and your cuts aren't as precise. So generally, I'll run anywhere between 20 inches per minute and 30 inches per minute. Now, if the cuts look like they're just, oh my goodness, it's taken 2 days to cut this thing out, I'll do one of two things. First, for any cuts that are just outside the line in easel or something like that, I cut a lot of cabinets. I cut a lot of furniture like that, so it's straight. I call them it's more technical work. So perfect dog bone cutouts with the dog bones on the inside corners for easy fit, etc. All of that stuff. What I do, instead of using a 1/8 or a 1/4 inch bit, I go to a 1/2 inch bit. And I know people are going, what? That requires a 2.5 horsepower router to do that. But here's the thing. When you are cutting, let's say you're cutting 1/8 inch wood, the depth per pass for a bit is half the diameter. Okay. So if I'm using a 1/4 inch bit, that means I can cut 1/8 inch depth on every pass, right? So if I'm cutting a 1/4 inch piece of wood with a 1/4 inch bit, I can only cut 1/8 inch deep, which means theoretically it would take me 2 passes to get through that, right? Now switch to a 1/2 inch bit and cut that same profile. I can cut that whole thing in 1 pass. So it's literally 50% of the cut time. So your cut time, where you save your time, is by the size of the router, what bits it can handle, and going to a larger bit when possible, and maybe doing multiple jobs, using a larger bit to do clear out work where it'll cut deeper, faster, route out more. Then you switch to a smaller 1/8 inch bit to do the fine engraving or whatever. But at that time, you can get that down to 1/8 inch deep, and out of a 3/4 inch board, you're only cutting 1/8 inch. It'll take 2 passes to cut out that smaller component. So on the M2, that is really how you gain speed, how you reduce your cutting time, is by using the diameter, the correct diameter of bits at a good standard stable speed that the M2 is designed to work with. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
That's excellent, Casey. Yeah, that's a great explanation of how to save some cut times and kind of getting that G-code for you, because it's so different on different types of bits, and it's a lot to take in. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one of the things I've been trying to do too when we post these on YouTube is to put more of like what we talk about in there, so then it's easier to find for other people. So I'm going to put that in there that we talked about, bits and getting started and stuff like that on there, so other people can see what's going on.
Yeah, I know, Drew, you guys asked me to do a bit video, right? I still plan on doing that, just work is picked up and everything. So
yeah. I know
we're getting there. We're getting there, right?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, well, Clifford, I just saw you jumped in there. Can we help you with anything?
Yeah, I have a couple questions about 3D printing.
Yeah, totally.
So one of the tubes right up, butting up into the nozzle, kind of got clogged up.
Mm-hmm.
To get it unclogged, we basically like mashed the tube to break up the filament that was in there. We got the filament out, but now when we're pushing the filament through that part, it's very difficult.
You'll need a new PTFE tube probably, because it's probably permanently bent in there. So you probably need a new tube. Like, did you squish it with like pliers or something like that to get it out? Yeah. Because if it's really hard to push through, like you might be able to squeeze it in the other direction. I don't think I have one over here next to me, but if it's squeezed, you might be able to like squeeze it in the other direction to kind of open it a little bit. But if it's difficult to push through, then that's going to give you inconsistent printing, and it's going to lead to like your prints being kind of squishy and not being able to extrude fully out through the nozzle.
Yeah.
So
that's
there's
what I was kind of feeling like, but I wanted to just double check before I went to the work of replacing all that.
Send me an email. We'll get you one.
There's a question on that real quick. The tube that goes in the top of the hot end, it should go through the compression nut, and it should feed down through the hot tube to the metal hot end. It should actually be bumped up flat, right? You can't see it in there, but it should be pressed all the way in there. Is down there on that end, is that the part that you squished?
See, Rob, yeah, I know it's getting to noon right now, y'all. So yeah. If you need to go, that's fine.
Is that the part that you squished on the PTFE tube?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so you can also try pulling that out and cutting off. There's more than enough tube on there. Use a nice sharp razor to cut off the last inch of that tube, and then reinsert it down in the hot end.
Yeah, if it's at the very end, that you could try that too. Just make sure that it goes all the way when the tube, like when you move your x-axis, and make sure it doesn't get caught from moving all the way over on the x-axis all the way to the side. Because if it like gets stuck and doesn't quite go over, then it will pull that tube away over time. It will pull it back away from that nozzle, and that will cause clogs. Can cause you some problems.
That's true too.
So that might be something to get you going for right now.
Yeah, and then yeah, send me an email and I'll get you going.
Okay. And I got several questions.
Yeah. Sure. What's
The next
up?
one is can I share my screen?
Yeah. Is it about like Cura, something like that?
Well, let's see if I can show you on my phone.
Okay.
So the wires right there, especially the white one, they were kind of wrapped around each other, and so all I did was unplug them and plug them back in. But in that process, it will not go to auto home anymore. Like it'll just think that wherever straight down is auto home. It'll come to the side, but it won't go forward and back.
Forward or back. Yeah, it sounds like that could be an issue with the connector itself. Like maybe the wires have come loose in the connector because it thinks that it's already at home. So it's like an on-off switch. The limit switches are little on-off switches. So it probably thinks it's already at home, and that's why it's not moving, because it's like, oh, I'm already here. So then it doesn't move. So that's something too. If you want to send me a picture, I can help you troubleshoot that. We can see if we can get to the bottom of it. Because it could be like when it got wrapped around there, it might have pulled something off of the little limit switch or something along those lines. And we can get you a new limit switch, or hopefully we can just push one of those wires back in there and kind of see on that and see if that's what's been causing it.
Okay. All right. Well, I have some other things that I did email you about, but I guess you'll be checking your email with the stuff that I'm about to send you. So I guess
It's in the past hour. Yeah, I've been hanging out in here. So yeah, if you send me an email, we'll get you going. Absolutely. support@makermade.com, or you got my email too, drew@makermade.com, and we'll make a support ticket and get you going for sure, man.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, we got any final questions or thoughts?
Gotta go get some stuff.
Sweet. Yeah, well, as always, just reach out to us if you ever need any help, or hop on that owners group on Facebook, and we'll get you going, and good luck on your projects, everybody.
I will definitely be there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Drew.
Thank you. Y'all take care. Have a good one.